generation. They defended us in the most pivotal war our world has ever known. Thousands bravely took to the skies. Now, you too can soar with them among the clouds. Step aboard two legendary aircraft of World War II and share the experience of a lifetime. Fly where heroes have flown. The Yankee Air Museum.
All right, so we're in Pensacola, Florida today, and we're having a very neat experience. You guys know I love World War II history, and I like to experience World War II history wherever I go and help teach you guys. Well, today I'm doing something I've never been able to do, and that is actually go on board and tour a B-17 bomber from World War II. So join me as we join the Yankee Air Museum and the crew of the Yankee Lady for an awesome tour of this very neat aircraft.
Gene Wiedekemper, W-E-D-E-K-E-M-P-E-R. I'm chief pilot on the B-17 for Yankee Air Museum. I've been flying this airplane for 21 years. We do tours, we do flights around the country. Most of it is within the 4-mile radius of Willow Run Airport, which is located in Belleville, Michigan, just to the east of Ann Arbor, Michigan. This is the last trip of the year for us. We're doing a 12-day trip. We started out in Willow Run Airport. We went to the Greenville Spartanburg Air Show. We came down here to give rides. We're leaving tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. We'll go to Houston, Texas for their big air show in Houston, Texas. Tuesday morning, we'll leave and go back to Willow Run Airport where it's going to be nice and cold. Yankee Air Museum, can't tell you exactly what date it got started, but it's been in operation probably since about in the early 80s. And 1986, we purchased this aircraft. They found it out in Arizona. They brought it back. And they spent 9.5 years. It was supposed to be a 5-year project, but it took 9.5 years to fully restore this aircraft. And they did a marvelous job on this airplane. I've flown all the B-17s that have been around for the last 20 years. And this airplane really is the nicest B-17 out there flying. It is the most authentic well-equipped airplane, and you'll see it when we go inside. You'll see that it's taken back to the original condition of the 1940s. So after they got finished with this aircraft, that's when we started doing tours. Later, we got the authorization to give rides in the aircraft, and that's how we support this aircraft, is by giving rides in it. If we weren't selling rides and giving rides, this would be parked along with the many other B-17s, static in the museum. But like I said, it's only one of three B-17s flying in the United States. There's one in England by the name of Sally B. This one is at Willow Run, Michigan. The next closest B-17 we have is out of Mesa, Arizona, Sentimental Journey, wonderful airplane as well. And then Ye-O Pub up in Oregon, another beautiful B-17. This particular aircraft was the 13th to the last B-17 built. So it was really built in 1944, commissioned in 1945. It never saw combat. So it served various missions, but the Coast Guard owned this aircraft for many years. And at one time, they put a boat, a wood boat on the bottom, 27 feet long, could accommodate 12 people, and it had rations on board for 20 days. So search and rescue, wooden boat, they would drop it into the seas for rescue missions. It was also used for iceberg patrol. Later in its life, it was used to fight forest fire, insecticides, spraying. So it's had a varied history.
But as far as World War II, it never saw action because it came in too late.
World War II, it never saw action. No, came in too late.
What's the difference between the silver paint schemes and the OD green paint schemes that most people associate with?
Well, in the beginning, they thought that by being OD green, that it was a better camouflage. And they found out that it really wasn't a better camouflage. In my opinion, if you're looking at an airplane from the ground, it's better to have it silver to blend in with the clouds than OD green. So they found out that they could save time, they could save weight, and so they discontinued the painting process. But early in the program, they were painted green. And what you see here is a radial engine. The reason it's a radial engine, if you look at the bank of cylinders, they're in a circle. Beautiful engine, was great in World War II. The downside to this type of engine, with the cylinders being on the bottom, oil runs down into the cylinders, beyond the piston, beyond the rings, and we get hydraulic locks in the cylinder, and that's why you see us pull a cylinder through. We try to find those hydraulic locks before we engage a starter, because if you engage a starter with a hydraulic lock, you're going to bend the crank, or you're going to bend the connecting rods and really do a lot of damage. A lot of people ask, how high did this airplane fly? And this particular, the B-17 in World War II was able to get up at high altitudes. And the reason for it, not only does it have an internal gear-driven supercharger, but it also has turbocharger on top of it. As we go higher and higher into the atmosphere, the air gets thinner and thinner, and we need to have this boost to develop the power. In fact, if you go to 18,000 feet, the atmosphere is about half. Here on the ground, it's 14.7 pounds per square inch. As you get to 18,000 feet, it's half of that. When you get to 35,000 feet, it's 25% of what it is here at sea level. So in order to get the power, we've got to have air going through these engines. So we do that with the supercharger and the turbocharger, and that's why on a typical mission they were able to get up to 25, 30,000 feet for the mission. You wanted to get high. The higher you can get, the better chance you had at missing flak. But you're still going to get flak, but you're better off the higher you can get. And they were doing daylight bombings in these things, so you wanted to get high. Early in the program, this aircraft did not have what we call the cheek turret. If you look at the cheek turret, those are 50 caliber machine guns that sit right underneath the Bombardier. The Bombardier not only used the Norden bomb sight, but double duty. He operated those machine guns on the belly. It did not have much protection when the enemy was coming from 12 o'clock position. So adding this, the cheek guns, the cheek turret, really helped the B-17 in its missions. The downside to that cheek turret, as you can see, there's a lot of drag created there, so it was a slower aircraft just because of that. If you look at the cheek guns, on the right side, we have cheek guns on the left side. The navigator station is located right behind the Bombardier. That navigator also ran the 50 caliber machine guns. If the enemy was coming from the right machine gun. Coming from the left machine gun. So they were double duty in what they were doing here up in the nose of this aircraft.
How many crew members were aboard this?
There's 10 crew members on board. We have the Bombardier. Behind him we have the navigator. You go upstairs, you have the pilot and the co-pilot. Behind the pilot and co-pilot, and I'll show you this later, was the flight engineer / top turret gunner. There's a top turret on there, 250 caliber machine guns that were going off directly behind the pilots. I'm talking to like 3 feet behind the pilots. So no wonder they were deaf after the war. But anyway, so you have the pilot, co-pilot, you had the flight engineer / top turret gunner. Go back into the radio room, we had a radio operator. Go back into the main portion of the cabin, we had the waist gunners. One on the left side, one on the right side. Underneath, you can see the ball turret. There was a gunner there in the ball turret that got to sit in there for like 8-hour missions, cramped, and we'll look at that later. And then we have the tail gunner all the way back in the airplane. As we talked about earlier, here's your ball turret gunner. Some people refer it as a belly turret gunner. But this will rotate. Barrel straight down. Opening will be up here. The gunner crawls down in and then rotates back to his position. I talked to a guy, this has been a lot of years ago, but he says after the bombing mission, he was extremely exhausted, so he laid his head down right here in this area. And you can see light from there, so there's air that moves in around here. And he said he just laid it down just for just a few seconds, and that cold air instantly gave him severe frostbite to the face.
Wow.
So if you had air leaks, you didn't want to lay your head next to those areas. Now this, we're up in the radio room right now, and here's a hatch. Of course, they didn't remove that when they were flying up at the high altitudes, but when we give rides, we'll typically take this hatch out for ventilation reasons. Not only that, gives you a great view looking out this aircraft. So I should have showed you earlier, but if we look back to the back and we can catch it on the way out, there's an antenna on the side of the aircraft that goes out like 200 feet. So once they would take off, they could release that antenna for better communications. In World War II, they said it wasn't uncommon for them to forget to bring that cable back, wrap it back up, and you would see those things hanging in trees around the airport as they were coming into land. So we'll move to the front now. Once again, this is the radio room, but here we're coming into the Bombay area, and we just loaded this aircraft. We're leaving here. We're leaving Pensacola today, and tomorrow we're going to the Houston Air Show. So we decided, let's get this thing loaded up. It's starting to rain. Get it loaded up. We'll leave at 9 o'clock in the morning. That's one less thing we have to do in the morning. So you're not going to get the best view of the Bombay area because we're filled with tables, retail box, ladders, but we are going through the Bombay at this time. If I may say, if you look at this Bombay area, the doors, those doors are spring-loaded so that if a bomb fell, these doors would automatically open to get rid of that bomb. They were spring-loaded at 100 pounds, so anything at 100 pounds or greater would fall off the shackles. Those doors would hopefully open and the bomb would go. If you look at this catwalk, it's not very wide whatsoever. So they did have casualties where they had crewmen fall off of this thing in combat, land on the Bombay doors open, and they were on a free fall.
Would they have had the ropes that's up here now?
I'm sorry?
Would they have had the ropes that's up here now to help them get across?
I think they did, yes. But I can't say that 100%, but I think so. It's tough to get through here. I can take your camera. So
All right, boys.
you want me to take a camera?
I don't think I'm fit through here.
You may fit through there. I tell you, I've seen bigger guys, I think, than you get through there. You have to go sideways and really push yourself through there. Maybe you won't.
Well, I'll shoot from back here.
Or you can have somebody else shoot up here if you want.
Yeah. Let me make sure it's set up for him.
You have one of your guys that can take it, or I can bring one of my guys.
Yeah, I'll get one of my guys to throw it.
Aye, aye, aye. Here we've made it into the cockpit. Here's the pilot station, co-pilot station. Right here, where I'm standing, is going to be the flight engineer / top turret gunner. There's actually a pedestal We don't have it installed with that pedestal end. It's so tight, we can't get around, passengers can't get around. So the pedestal is removed, but if you step up on this pedestal, it's going to put your head up here in the top turret. Here's a 50 caliber machine gun. You can see about 3 feet behind the pilot, 3 feet behind the co-pilot. These things are going off. Terrible on the hearing, terrible. So I can take you up here and show you some of the things of the flight deck. As I said, the reason this aircraft was able to get so high is not only because it has a supercharger, but it has a turbocharger. And if you look at it here, the turbocharge, we call it a dial-o-matic. So you can adjust this turbocharger to control the wastegate up until 8. If you look at the index here, it takes it to 8. In an emergency, you're going to destroy the engines, but in an emergency, you could flip the switch and take the turbocharger up to a higher setting that the engine hangs together. But at least you're getting more power. Once you do that, those engines have to be removed. They're not going to go back out again. Here's the throttles on the B-17. You have number 1. When they talk about number 1 engine, start at the left, sitting in a pilot seat. Number 1 is going to be the far outboard engine. Number 2 engine. Number 3 engine. And number 4 engine. On the ground for taxiing and takeoff, the tail wheel on this aircraft is non-steerable. Especially on takeoff, we use these throttles to control the direction down the runway. So if we're taking off and the airplane starts moving, let's say we need to turn to the left because it's drifting to the right. We would have number 3 and 4. We would bring number 3 and 4 up higher and possibly bring back number 1 and 2. We're going to split these throttles to keep it tracking straight. As we get faster into the takeoff roll, the rudder becomes more effective, and we'll start to marry up these throttles. And when the tail comes up 80, 90, most of the time now we can marry these throttles together because we have enough rudder control. But if you sit up here and watch us on takeoff, you're going to see us doing a lot of movement on these throttles to keep this airplane tracking down the runway. In addition to the throttles, you have a prop control. We can adjust the blade angle of the prop for max efficiency and cruise. Mixture controls for those of you that are pilots. The mixture control is just the opposite of what it is in your airplanes that you fly. You know, mixture full forward is full rich. Not true in the B-17. Mixture full forward is idle cutoff. Rich mixture is back in those positions.
Any questions, sir? Oh, you're up here.
So that's the mixture control. Like I said, just the opposite of what you expect. This airplane, even though most airplanes back in the day were hydraulic controlled for the landing gear, the flaps, this was an electric airplane. The landing gear is electric. The flaps are electric. The downside about the landing gear being electric is that it takes 23 seconds for this gear to come up after takeoff. If you had a catastrophic engine failure, you want to get rid of drag. You want to get that gear up as soon as possible. Well, you're not going to get it up real quick on this aircraft because it's going to take 23 seconds before it's fully retracted. The only thing on this aircraft that is hydraulic is the cowl flaps. These are the cowl flaps. I can open up the cowl flap like number 4. If you look out at the engine, number 4 engine, you'll see that cowl flap open. Okay, and I'll close that cowl flap. Those are hydraulic. The brakes are hydraulic. The rest of it is electric. And if I put this, if I bring the batteries on, the master switch on, I'll put the hydraulic pump on. There's the pressure of it. Normal pressure is 600 to 800 psi. The hydraulic pump is to your right, and you'll hear the hydraulic pump come on. So that's your hydraulic pump, your reservoir. Over here on my left, on the pilot's left, you'll see various gauges and switches, generators, Bombay doors, batteries, lights, inverter. Come over here to the instrument panel. This is different than what it was back in the 40s. We do have instruments for both pilots, pilot, co-pilot. Pilot instruments are run by electric. Co-pilot's instruments are run by a vacuum pump. Modern radios, engine instruments, radios, more radios, and down here are the autopilot controls. This aircraft, most people don't realize it, but it did have an autopilot. And if you look over here to my left, they called it a formation stick. It's a formation stick. It was an autopilot type of system. They call it a formation stick, but most of the pilots we talked to, or I have talked to back years ago, said that they did not like it, and very few pilots ever used a formation stick. But a good thought, but not practical really. All right, we've seen it from here. We can go down to the Bombardier. We'll go this way. If you can make it, that's a Bombardier and a navigator station. Look how small this is compared to our seats of today. They were smaller people back then. But anyway, this is his station. Here's the Norden bomb site. Very much protected. Before it would depart on a mission, one of the last things that they would do is bring the Norden bomb site out from the vault, install in the aircraft. After a mission was over, if they got back home, they would take this Norden bomb site that was one of the first things to come out, goes back to the vault. They were doing their best to keep it away from the enemy. So it's called the Norden bomb site. A lot of adjustments. Yeah, Years ago, I've had Bombardiers sit in a seat and play with this, and they said, "Well, I believe it actually still works." So, does it? I don't know, but they seem to think so. So, in addition to the navigation to the northern bomb site for the bombing missions, like I said, this guy had double duty. And right below, you can see it through the plexiglass, you'll see the 50 caliber machine guns. But take this control, release it here, and move it back over in front of him. So that's how he could fire the 50 caliber machine guns. You're sitting at the navigation station. You can see the navigation table that the navigator worked on. Double duty. So he needed to fire from the left side, machine gun. Needed to fire from the right side, he operated this machine gun. Drift meter. That had to do with the Norton bomb site. And one last thing I'll show you up here that's kind of interest. There's the emergency bell. So when it was time to evacuate, when the pilot command said evacuate, that bell, he would activate that bell from inside the cockpit. I've talked to a lot of guys that have evacuated out of these things. And a common question they hear is, did it take a lot of nerve? Did you have to work up a lot of nerve to be able to leap out of this airplane? They said when the airplane is on fire and coming apart, you don't think about it. You're out of here because you know you're not going to survive if you go down with the aircraft. Thank you.
All right, so we are sitting on the B-17 Yankee Lady. We're not flying, unfortunately, because it is still raining here today in Pensacola. Tropical system moving through, but just taking a minute kind of to soak in inside of this plane and think about what it may have been like during World War II to be on one of these, even though this particular plane didn't fly any missions during World War II. One of the things I will share that I have noticed is reading about these planes, looking at pictures and video of these planes, you know, seeing these planes in movies, you realize it's small inside of these aircraft, but you never realize exactly how small it is inside of this aircraft until you actually step foot in one. I couldn't fit through one of the doors in here. That's how small it is. And then when you're actually sitting in the seat, like I am right here, we're sitting in the radio room, it is not very comfortable. Jack is right there sitting with me. Jack, what goes through your mind sitting in this thing?
Small.
Very small. Very small. But I'm gonna tell you, I'm thinking too, if I flew in one of these during World War II, where would I like to be if I'm working on this plane?
Not in the plane.
Not in the plane.
I'll be the ground crew, yeah.
I mean, everywhere you go, the rear gun, the ball turret, the front nose turret. I mean, if I had to choose a spot, I think I'll be back here on these machine guns on the side, because at least you got a little room, but still you have no headroom. I mean, it's weird, you know, to be sitting here thinking about that. But in all honesty, I think I will be right here in the navigator spot. I mean, this is closer to a commercial airline seat than anything else, and you've at least got some headroom, and you got a canopy above you, so you're able to see a little bit. But it's definitely a unique experience, and I think we're taking off here. No, I think it's a Bombardier doors opening, but I'm gonna give you another peek into the Bombay here. We had the pilot Gene explaining a little to us about the Bombay a minute ago, but this is another look into the Bombay doors. You can see them right there on the side. Like I said, they've got stuff loaded in here because they're leaving, but that is, I'm telling you, a very, very bad place to be if this thing is dropping bombs. As they explained, it's -30, -40, 50 degrees, and these things open. There wouldn't be anybody in here, but you can just imagine the cold air that will be coming through the bottom of these Bombay doors. We are standing back where the machine guns are now, and I'm telling you, these 50 cal machine guns, dude, are something else. And just to sit here and be able to get that view out of a B-17 is worth gold. That's a pretty cool view. Now, Gene, the pilot, said that this glasses here now wasn't here during the war. This was wide open, and if you could imagine being here, suffering with a cold wind, getting frostbite on your face and any skin that's exposed, I mean, that's something to think about. So you not only had to dodge enemy bullets and artillery and flak, but you also had to dodge the cold. Pretty cool. And back there is the tail gunner position. We'll get a look of it outside of the aircraft, but that's where your tail gunner would be.
Yeah, just look in that hatchway, you'll see a lot more.
So this is the tail gunner position on the plane, and as the pilot told us, this is probably one of the most dangerous positions for any of the crew members on these B-17s, because you're protruding out the rear of the plane. Enemy fighters are going to go for your rear a lot of times. So a lot of times this guy right here was in the midst of danger all the time. All right, guys, so this has been the B-17 Yankee Lady here with the Yankee Air Museum. Our pilot, Gene here, was kind enough to take us through the aircraft. I learned a lot of things I didn't know. Hopefully you will as well when you watch this episode of History Saver. And Gene, well, what is the overall mission of what you guys do?
The overall mission here is we've got to honor these people of World War II, as well as anywhere. I mean, the sacrifices in World War II were immense. And we want people to come out and see what these people had to endure by looking at this aircraft. This aircraft was such an important piece of World War II. It dropped more bombs in Europe than any other bomber, and it really contributed greatly to our freedom.
Well, guys, you can check out this aircraft too. You can visit the YankeeAirMuseum.com, I believe is their correct website. Go on there, you can find their schedule of where the Yankee Lady and the rest of their great historic aircraft are going to be. And you could pay a fee and actually fly on this thing. So it goes to support these guys, their mission, and what they do, and keeps this aircraft airborne. We'll see you on the next episode of History Saver. Until then, keep preserving history. Stay safe.